Welcome to the Abundant Accountant Podcast. This is where accounting professionals just like you come to learn the most efficient and powerful ways to grow their firm, sharpen their sales skills, and have consistent, increasing revenue. We cover topics from sales, networking, handling objections, negotiation, pricing, finding those ideal clients, and how to get rid of the ones that just don't suit you and how to set those boundaries so you can stop giving away your time, working for free, putting yourself on sale, and really start to get paid for the value and the worth that you bring to your clients. You'll learn tips, strategies, as well as hear others from personal interviews from successful accounting professionals. This podcast will show you exactly how to create the firm and life of your dreams full of abundance. Welcome to the Abundant Accountant Podcast. Today, we have a very special guest. Our special guest is an author, speaker, trainer, master hypnotist, and master of Neuro-Linguistic programming. For the last 30 years, he's taught tens of thousands of people the power of language to persuade, influence, sell, and heal and turn stumbling blocks into stepping stones. But before we welcome our special guest to the show today, I know it is crazy that so many accountants and tax pros think that increasing their fees will lose them clients, resulting in lower revenue. Sure, discounting fees, getting a lot of clients, sending out proposal after proposal might work. But for anyone who wants to increase firm revenue by working harder, taking on new clients slowly, and with way more struggle. But the simple fact is, our clients triple their base fees, get paid first and up front, without ever having to chase clients down for payments or having AR ever again. If you want to see how those accountants and tax pros are doing it, register now for my brand new masterclass at theabundantaccountant.com/masterclass. It's an investment of 45 minutes now, but to provide a lifetime of increased revenue without working more hours or having to get more designations or qualification. Once again, go to theabundantaccountant.com/masterclass to watch. Now let's welcome our special guest, Paul Ross, to the show. Welcome, Paul, to the show.
Thank you, Michelle. It's always an honor to address your audience and also to engage in dialogue with you. You are, I'm serious, you're a genius, and I have admiration and respect for you that is seldom something I feel or experience in my life. Thank you for letting me contribute.
Wonderful. Well, today on the Abundant Accountant Podcast, we are talking about the benefits, the perks, and the abundance of money that comes from sitting in silence and sitting in your discomfort, especially when you're sitting with a client and all you want to do is talk, tell them how smart you are, get to the point, tell them how much it's going to cost to work with you, but then realize that they say they want to think about it, they want to take it home to review, and you realize that in the last hour, you've talked the whole time and never sat in the silence or in the discomfort that might come from blank space. So that's what we're talking about today. I'm very happy to have Paul here, who is also genius. He's also my work husband and has a background in all of this stuff and even wrote a book called Subtle Words That Sell. So thank you for being here. So let's dive into our conversation today about silence, discomfort, and keeping the talking to a minimum in an enrollment sales conversation when meeting with clients, because that's the way to generate more revenue. And a lot of accounting and tax professionals emailed me, and I met some in person and said, Michelle, how do you do it? How do you sit there and sit with your discomfort in silence without, anyone talking or anything around that? So that's what we're talking about. Paul, I'd love to get your take on this topic, and if we can give our listeners some actionable steps for their next sales meeting. That's always our mission here at The Abundant Accountant, so we'll probably give you 2, 3, or 4 things. So make sure you have your yellow legal pad or white legal pad in front of you to take notes.
I'm ready when you are.
Yeah. So what would you say the first thing is for an accounting or tax pro? They're meeting with a client. They're asking some questions. They're totally dominating the conversation by talking way too much. They want to just get to the point, and, they've got a stack of tax returns on their desk. They don't want to deal with any of this listening and asking questions and doing all the other things we've talked about here at the Abundant Accountant. So, Paul, what would you say the first thing is to learn how to sit in silence and be in discomfort?
I think it's important to recognize that when you're quiet, you give the other person the opportunity to give you useful information. If you're just talking, then you're not giving yourself the leverage to hear what the other person's needs are. You're not giving them the opportunity to tell you what it is they're looking for, so they recognize they're making a good decision. Nowadays, your clients and your prospects don't know how to make a good decision. They don't trust themselves. So when you're quiet, you enable them to give you necessary information. And this is critical in determining what your next question is going to be. So first and foremost, it's very, very useful. It's even necessary because you have to be able to elicit the right information. That's the first thing. The second thing to recognize is that discomfort is not a sign that something is going wrong. It's only a sign that internally you're having a conflict. It doesn't give you any data that you're going to fail. Most people feel discomfort and they think, oh, this means I'm failing. It gives you actually no information about how the other person is responding to you. It's only a sign that for whatever reason, you're having some kind of internal conflict.
Yeah, that makes sense. So one of the first things you said was, learn how to be in silence in all of your conversations, not just when you're about to meet with a new prospect in your firm. And you have to practice this outside of that. Can you give a few examples of what that would look like, and then how to best practice that and be in discomfort? And maybe even like with, a lot of people have kids. How can you practice that with your kids?
You have to first and foremost train yourself to be a little less triggered, a little less reactive. You notice I'm not saying don't ever be triggered, don't ever be reactive. The only way I've learned to do this, and I'm not going to get into the details of it, is to do a very small meditation practice every day. Because when you meditate, I don't care if it's 5 minutes, it will bring you into the space where you can just quiet down your mind a little bit. You don't have to be a Zen master and sit there and watch all your thoughts disappear. And God, I've been meditating since 2006. So how long is that? I haven't had my coffee yet today. It's a long time. I still can't have more than 5 minutes of silence, and I still very often talk over the other person. But having a small meditation practice, and also holding compassion for the other person. I don't mean by that you hold love in your heart, you're glowing with all that, because after all, you're in business. But it just means you understand that they have to go through their process of discernment. It's a discernment process. And if you don't let them go through that discernment process, they're not only going to lose trust in you, they're going to get confused. And one of the number one enemies of any sales conversation is the other person being confused. A confused mind can't make choices. So when you are able to sit with your discomfort and to recognize it's not a sign that you're losing, it's only a sign that you're stepping into a new opportunity of walking through the sales world, then the other person has the opportunity, the time to really take in what you have to say, and they can get the clarity they need to make a good decision. Does that make sense? So being silent allows the other person to cease being confused, and that gives them the clarity they need to make a good decision. If I could just add something very quickly, oftentimes when the prospect gives us an objection, it's really about them being confused. They're confused about the value proposition. They're confused about something else. They're not going to give you the real objection. And so this is a good way to get the real objection out on the table. An objection that's unspoken is an objection that you cannot convert to a sale. So when you're quiet, they're going to give you the smoke screen, like, I need more time to think it over. To which my response is, I understand. Have you ever taken a long time to think something over. It still turned out to be a horrible decision. Maybe it's not about time, but about the clarity you need to recognize it's safe to move forward today.
Yeah. And I think, being in silence and being in discomfort, like you said, it allows the other person who you're talking to even think about what they need or what their challenges are or why they're sitting in front of you. And when we talk over people or talk too much, the other person can't think because they're ultimately listening, and you can't listen and think probably really well at the same time. So silence provides that space, just like in meditation that you were saying, even if you're practicing it 5 minutes a day, that's a great way to take your next step. So when you're with your client, you can practice your in-person meditation in order for your clients to learn and be able to make a good decision about an answer or a question that you ask and you need to hear an answer, or listening for what their challenges or their needs are. And knowing that, I think the biggest thing you shared, Paul, was that nothing's wrong. I think a lot of people, and why it feels so difficult to sit in silence or, in that discomfort, is because we think, did we say something wrong? What are they thinking? Do they not want to work with me? Do they not like what I just said? And you have the inner critic going on in your head at a really rapid and loud pace. And then you're like, oh God. And then you just go into a downward spiral and probably end up talking even more.
And there's something a little bit more subtle, but it's actually very, very, it will ring true for everyone that hears this. When you go into a sales situation, I don't care what you're selling, there's a frame. And by frame, I simply mean the underlying idea of who holds the value, who holds the gift in the conversation, who has what the other person wants. When you talk really fast, it indicates desperation. It indicates that you're hungry, which indicates you have no other options, which indicates you're not in demand. And who's going to pay a high fee to someone who's not in demand? There's something that one of my mentors used to say: the person who is hungry never gets fed. I don't know if that's true, but if you're really hungry for the sale, which is conveyed through how fast you talk, even if you're not hungry for the sale, let's say you're doing well and you're not hungry, but if you're in the habit of talking fast, you'll come across as hungry, you'll come across as needy, you'll come across as the person who needs them, rather than setting the frame that they're the ones who need your service. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think what you were saying, the person who is hungry is never fed, because if we're desperate, clients and prospects can sense that. And then actually it backfires on you, because they will go somewhere else. They will look for another accounting or tax firm just because of the talking fast or even talking too much. I've definitely noticed that with a lot of the clients that I've worked with. When we get really good at not talking and listening to a point where if it's quiet for 5 minutes, it doesn't even faze you. The thought of something is wrong doesn't even cross your mind anymore. That's when you become highly valuable and highly attractive to the person who you're meeting with, which is very counterintuitive to what you would think, right? You would think, well, I need to tell them about my firm, how long I've been in business, how many clients I have, all my credentials.
No, you're giving a resume. No one wants to sit and listen to a resume. Do you want to listen to a resume? I just want to know with them, what's in it for me?
Yeah, what's in it for me? Yep, totally. So what is another technique, strategy, I know we talked a little bit about just starting with a small meditation. What's another way to put this into practice in the real world today?
Yeah. Okay. This is something because in addition to my biography that you gave out, I'm also a healer, and I learned this from healing trauma. Of course, your clients are not traumatized. Maybe they are. I don't know.
Some might be. Tax season has traumatized a lot of people every year.
Okay. So. Well, of course, I've been traumatized by the IRS. We're not getting into that. So one of the ways you can turn off that internal dialogue that's going yammer, 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 yammer is by using the body. I learned this through the work of a brilliant guy by the name of Peter Levine. He is an expert in working with trauma. It's very simple. You use the body to comfort yourself, and no one will notice it. They'll just look to them like you're crossing your arms. You take your right hand and you put it under your left armpit, and then you take your left hand and just put it on your right bicep. This sounds a little nutty, but what it does is remind your body that you're in a safe container and you're okay. It automatically slows down. It turns off the sympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for putting us into fight flight, and activates our parasympathetic nervous system, which is designed to calm us down. If you try to have an internal conversation like calm down, stop talking, you're just adding fuel to the fire. But if you interrupt it through using the body has wisdom that the mind does not have contact with. So you use your body to do that, and you will calm down. The internal dialogue slows down. It's automatic. You don't have to try. If anyone wants to see more, just Google Peter Levine on YouTube. Search for him on YouTube, and you'll see him talk about this kind of thing.
Well, I think it's really important. Like you said, you're turning on the sympathetic nervous system, and when we think or
turning it off.
I mean, turning it off. Yes, correct. You're turning it off, and you're interrupting the system. Where you said, a lot of times I think all of us, including me, you think something's wrong, and then your inner critic goes down a downward spiral. And like Paul said, you're putting, fuel on a fire that's already going, and it's only going to get worse and worse and worse. And then you're going to really start over talking because the silence will become too much. So you said put your left hand under your right armpit, right? And put your right hand under your left armpit, and your left hand over your right bicep.
That's correct. It'll just look like you're in a listening posture. You're talking over the phone. I'm assuming you're not face to face.
Yeah, so just on phone calls.
Yeah, they'll never know. They'll never see it. And you will calm down, guaranteed, automatic. This works for people who are deeply traumatized. So automatic guarantee it'll work for you if you're just jumpy and nervous about a sales conversation. In fact,
what kind of trauma has that healed mostly?
Oh, people who have been in car accidents, people who have been in war, all sorts of things. So it'll work for now. It's temporary hold. It's not going to heal the trauma, but will at least get them to a place where they can, I don't want to get too deep in this. It's called self-regulate. You can self-regulate your emotions and your body's responses. Self-regulation is a great tool to learn to quiet the mind, which in turn allows you to sit in silence. Unexpected. I don't want to get too technical. I know in my past appearances, I've either gone off the rails and ran into the weeds, or I've gotten too technical. So
they're all good. All right. And what's the third thing we can try? So we have a little bit of meditation. We have the right arm or right hand under the left armpit, left hand over the right bicep to, give yourself a little hug and turn off the sympathetic nervous system.
Sure. So this is what the Navy SEALs call box breathing. So this is a technique from highly trained warriors. This is what they do.
Okay.
So I'm serious. You do this before you pick up the phone for the call. Before you're on, or your Skype, or however you do it. So you breathe in for 4, you hold for 2, and you breathe out for 6. You make the exhale just like 2 beats slower than the inhale. This was written about 1,500 years ago by Patanjali in the Yoga Sutra. This is an ancient technique, but it really works. So this is using the breath. So you breathe in for 4, you hold for 2, you breathe out for 6. Guaranteed to work. Combine it with that special arm crossing. You will get quiet in the mind. You'll be prepared. You'll be open to listen. You won't be talking yammer, 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 jammer, jammer, jam, jam, jam. And here's the thing. We're incorporating the body and the breath, which you're using anyway all the time. So it's not some sophisticated technique. You can do it right away, and it works across all contexts.
Love it. So those are all 3 ways to practice, when you're, I'm going to guess, with your family at dinner and you ask a question You can go into some box breathing to wait for the answer instead of opening up your mouth and interrupting.
On a date, which is a sales conversation, and too many people don't get a second date because they talk mostly about themselves.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Yeah, that's very true. I guess you could practice this with your kids, right? Asking them.
I don't know. Kids are such a pain in the, I don't want to, kids are such an absolute, that's why I never had them.
Well, I know a lot of people listening have kids and families. But,
I'm joking.
You know, at dinner, you could ask the kids, what did you learn today? And then you could put your right arm under your left armpit, and you could practice putting your left arm on your right bicep and do the box breathing at the same time right after you ask the question. So you're going to breathe in for 4, you're going to hold for 2, and then you're going to breathe out for a count of 6.
Yeah, it's really important that we not get triggered, because if we're triggered, particularly if you're in a rapport, and I would just want to take 1 second, 30 seconds to make a little shift that'll really help people. Everyone talks about being in rapport. Well, if you're in rapport with your potential client, your prospect, and you start getting panicky and talking too fast, they'll start getting panicky. They won't know why. They're just feeling what you're feeling. And they'll think to themselves, well, I'm feeling panicky. This other person is not trustworthy. So it also enables you to stay in rapport in a healthy way. Not all rapport is healthy. So it enables you to have healthy, effective rapport. So it has so many benefits.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. So it's almost like when someone yawns, you start to yawn. Well, if you start to be panicky, the other person becomes panicky too.
Right, and they won't know why.
Yeah.
They'll just assume there's a problem with you.
Wow, that's fascinating.
I know. I'm a great guest.
Yeah, no, it is fascinating. So, and I'll give you guys a 4th idea on how to really learn to be in silence and enjoy the calm and the peace and just, use your mute button. Ask a question.
Oh my.
I literally will just use the mute button. And then if you need to say something, at least they're not going to hear it, and have a cup of coffee. I drink a half gallon of water in the morning, half gallon in the afternoon. So I always have my big jug with me. But really utilizing the mute button will help you get past that discomfort. Because it is uncomfortable for a lot of people. But putting yourself on mute and just, when you put it on mute, then you can do Paul's ideas too. You can do the armpit trick. You can do the breathing trick and put all these things into place and just watch what happens. Because out of the hundreds of firms that I've worked with, to be honest, this skill set is the one that makes the big bucks. The more you can stop talking and be silent and sit in that discomfort until it becomes comfortable, eventually it will, the more revenue you will generate, and your clients will be able to make better decisions and good decisions that they feel good about, because, they need to be able to think straight. And if they're being interrupted, you're interrupting their thinking pattern, which then they can't make a decision.
And remember, Michelle, mic drop moment. You're never selling your services. You're always selling decisions and good feelings about decisions.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Selling good feelings about good decisions.
You're selling decisions and good feelings about decisions. You're never selling your accounting practice or any of that. Decisions and good feelings about decisions.
Yes. You're always selling good decisions and then good feelings about good decisions and their decisions that they want to decide on.
Correct.
That was a tongue twister. Yeah. Well, thank you, Paul, so much for being here. This was fantastic. I think it was, this is stuff you can practice every day. At little repetitions goes a far way. Is there anything else that you would like to share that we did not cover as it relates to really learning how to be in silence and be in that discomfort?
But I would love to plug my book you can get on Amazon.
Sure. Yeah. So in the beginning, I shared that Paul wrote the book Subtle Words That Sell, which you can get on Amazon. Make sure to grab a copy. It's very good, and it will help only put more revenue in your bank account. So
That's what counts.
Yeah. So thank you again for being here. This was fantastic. And I love all the simple things that can really make a huge impact and difference in your firm.
It's always my honor, Michelle. You are one of the most brilliant human beings I've ever had the pleasure to meet in my life. I mean that sincerely.
Well, thank you again for being here, and I know you'll be back soon.
Thank you, Michelle.
What an amazing episode with Paul. Always has so many great golden nuggets, and we just get right to the point. But if sitting in silence and discomfort is really not comfortable for you, this is an area to focus on. Put in 5 minutes, 10 minutes a day, being mindful, practicing, putting your right hand under your left armpit, putting your left hand over your right bicep, breathing. Remember box breathing? Breathe in for 4 seconds, hold it for 2 seconds, and breathe out for 6 seconds. If the Navy SEALs are doing it, then I bet it works. It just takes repetition. And repetition is what will have you increase firm revenue, put more money in your bank account, have more clients say yes to you than telling you that they're going to go think about it or go elsewhere. So put these into practice, and remember, I do have a brand new masterclass. So if you are looking to increase your fees without losing revenue or your best loyal legacy clients, then head on over to theabundantaccountant.com/masterclass. It's an investment of 45 minutes now, but will provide you a lifetime of increased revenue without working harder, without working more hours, and without having to get any more designations or qualifications. So you can see exactly how my clients are getting paid double what they were before, sometimes tripling their base fees, getting paid first and upfront without ever having to chase down clients for payments and having AR. So head on over to theabundantaccountant.com/masterclass to watch, and I look forward to seeing some of you there. Have a wonderful day.